This DJNTV show is sponsored by DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Pro, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, Instant DJ Requests, and our DJNTV Insiders. This is John Young from DJNTV. Thanks for watching.
Welcome, everybody. It is a Monday night, and happy belated Thanksgiving to all of you who decided to join us. I want to say, since I didn't get a chance to do so, I'm thankful for well, I guess these two guys and some of you that tune in.
Some of them, but not all of them? Come on, all of them.
Well, that one right there is a little questionable. And
yeah,
then there's that one over there. I like them, but, you know.
Yeah, and the one over there doesn't like Huey Lewis, and I don't think that's a very good thing. And so we're just not going to talk to that part of the room for a few minutes.
We'll just ignore them.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. But no, thank you very much for taking time on your Monday night to join us. Whether you're watching us and the football game at the same time, or whether you are totally committed to us, either way, we greatly appreciate that. And a bunch of people jumping in the chat room. Some people that are new. It was nice to see some new faces, some new names. Seeing some questions already rolling in as well. So we'll see what we can tackle from that, as well as some that were sent to us ahead of time.
We're not getting oh, that's set to private. No, something's not right.
I'm seeing stuff in the chat.
In the chat, yeah, but Restream is saying. Hang on here.
Oh,
yeah.
I did all that intro, and it hasn't started
everyone else is seeing us and such, but YouTube isn't quite seeing us yet. So we're going to try to we'll get YouTube hooked up here and see. I don't know why that didn't hook up. There we go. I think it's
maybe
waiting. Waiting.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're able to type to.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't know why it is not. Did it do? This is what happens when you're doing live stuff, and for some reason it had gotten set over to private, and I don't understand.
Are you blaming Cubby? Is that it?
No.
I probably did it wrong.
Yeah. Huh. This is interesting. So we're going to try one more thing, and then I think there were two versions of it up there. That's why. Now it's going to switch over to the right one.
Say that.
It will. I know it will. That's why it was private and it was all messed up. So we're going to make it. We're going to make the wrong one private, and now the correct one should be. There's an ad playing, so yes, that means it's now working. We're there. Okay.
Oh, mine's still not showing anything.
That's okay. So we are here tonight.
There it goes. There it goes.
Here tonight to do DJ question and answer night for mobile DJs, and we've invited our friend Andy to join us. Cubby's going to be with. So every time that one of those two says something wrong, I'm just going to go and play the button, because that's what I like to do.
That explains so much.
Yeah. No, maybe
I'm calling BS. Do you actually have the button ready to go?
I don't. So yeah, you kind of knew that was coming, didn't you? So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. Thank you guys for being with us. If you are out on one of the other channels, not on YouTube, I'm going to put the link into the chat, and you can jump there because that's going to be the one that chat that Dan watches and such, and we can follow the easiest. So if you want to throw questions in for tonight, that is the place. The link that just went up. Actually went up about 25 seconds before you heard me say that, because that's just the way it works.
Everybody's like, "What's that link John just put in?"
Yeah, what's it? Well, first, yeah, that's like
they click on it.
Oh,
takes you to the same place again. Like, come on,
I'm here. So yeah, thank you guys for being with tonight.
And for those of you that were in YouTube land, you just missed a great opening. You'll have to go back and watch it later.
Yeah, we had it on Facebook. It was beautiful.
It was like pure gold.
There were tears in the eyes. Tears.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a lot of questions to hit, and a lot of the questions have been over the time of this series that we've been doing are sent in. Some people are emailed in, some people message those in via Facebook, and then some come from different Facebook groups. Tonight was mainly Facebook groups we're going to be hitting, questions that were there and I thought were applicable and we should hit in our show this evening. So I'm going to get that all pulled up, and we'll get started here in just a sec. Okay, that didn't work very well, but that's okay. I hit the wrong button. Okay, let's start. Let's start about a one that we all have about gear. When you have photographers specifically that bring their gear, and sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't, but they just dump their gear behind your system or off to the side of your system. How do you deal with that to keep that from happening and making it look like your area and space is dumpy?
Dan, you want to start?
Sure. So one of the things that I did a few years ago, before I had the rolling booth, is I had a table, and I would actually purposely not put stuff under my table, so that with the scrim and the skirting, I guess, on the table, what made it kind of nice was it gave them a spot that they could tuck it in. If they had a bag, it was there. It also then kept it out of sight, because to be honest with you, for a majority of our vendors that do this, it's not that they're trying to be lazy, as some people tend to think, or that they're trying to make our area look bad because they want to look better, anything like that.
Right.
But they need to have it someplace where it's easily accessible, and to where that it's, for lack of better terms, kind of watched over. Like, not that we have to look at it, but because we're standing there, right? We're not going to go, like, we might run to the bathroom, but we're not going to like run away for 20 minutes and then come back. Like, so somebody's usually relatively near their gear at all times. So that's one of the things we have to think about, is that's why they're doing it. So giving them a spot like under a table was one of the things that I used to do. Now that I have the rolling booth, it just kind of depends upon how much equipment that I have. But one of the things that's kind of nice, for lack of better terms, is the fact that this is a bigger unit. So when they do put stuff behind me, I kind of say, hey, if you kind of put it here, like it's really only visible from like a corner, from one spot or another. So it's not like straight on. It's not going to be one of those things where, Aunt Joe decides to take a video of the first dance. They're going to see all this junk sitting behind. No, they're going to see my stuff, and their bags are going to be hopefully tucked in neater as I try and help them with that.
Sure.
I have to agree with Dan. I love to play well with others. I have no problem with them putting their stuff behind me. They just tag it there nicely. A lot of my photographers aren't carrying like a large amount of gear, so it's literally just a bag or two, or backpack, and a lot of times they're strapped on the, with the cameras. So yeah, I have no problem. It helps me with referrals. Not being that DJ or that guy or a vendor to be hard to get along with. I just make sure it's out of the way, tucked out of the way. I obviously think the guests can tell what a photography bag is versus what DJ equipment is. So they're not going to hold that against me. And here in the Midwest where I live, I don't know. I've never lost an event because somebody saw a camera bag behind my visible. Sure. I think it's still on performance and mixing and hosting, and and aesthetics are nice. I have a Danny Mac stand and tube lights and stairs, and then so. Like I said, it doesn't affect my setup one bit. I love to play well with others, and I also make it referrals within my photography market and getting those pictures that I need for marketing and things of that nature. So I'm off. I mean, we work well together, and I think it works well. It's what I do.
Other things we maybe we've forgotten, and Kevin, you kind of hit on it. Like the size of the equipment, I think, has gotten smaller for a lot of our photographers. Like, as far as the bags that they needed to carry, used to be they would have to carry like 20 lenses. Well, now, maybe they're carrying 4. So it's, one smaller bag versus the huge bag before. So I think that's one thing that's kind of helped. Like, if you're working with maybe an old school photographer that's still using some of that other equipment, you're going to have a little bit, maybe more difficulty hiding it. But I think it still works. John, how about you?
So what I've had a couple of experiences where they've just put their stuff and there's nothing we could do about it because I wasn't as prepared as I used to be. Because I used to have a couple of tables with me, and I would set the back table up. This is after CDs, it wasn't that, but I would have the back table up there, and that's where I would put my ice water and putting things back there because my front table was so small as far as what it was using at the time was just the size of the case, the controller case. So I would have that, and then they could tuck things under there. And I had stopped doing that, goodness gracious, 4 years ago? Somewhere in that ballpark, and I quit having that second table with me. And after you talked about that, Dan, it's like, gosh, maybe I need to go back to having that accessible because I could have it as their workstation, but have it skirted so that things could be tucked below, and then they could come in and they could put their cameras on top and do whatever they're going to do. Man, that's actually may not be a bad way to play nice with others, and be prepared to, make it look nice in a professional space, and do both.
I would probably, if I was to go that route, if I'm going to be carrying something, I would probably just bring out a facade. Put a facade that's going to be behind you, that can be tucked in behind you. Like there's a lot of the ones that you're seeing, some of the very upscale DJs right now, they're front and center, and like their whole sound console is behind them, right? With the exception of the controller or turntables or whatever they're using, like all the nuts and bolts are behind them. I think having a facade behind you as opposed to that table, because what I could end up seeing is that workstation becomes just that and looking like a workstation. Mm-hmm. Like I've had a couple that have done that where they've even like sat down on the floor and pulled out their computer and started like doing some editing on the fly. Yeah. And I could see more of that happening if you had that large table. So I would look for something to use to hide, maybe even just a tabletop facade, but on the floor.
Sure.
So it's a little bit shorter, not taking up as much space. Also for your travel pieces.
Interesting thoughts. I'll have to dig into that one a little bit more. All right, let's jump to our next question.
I'll start this one.
Hang on. I got to ask the question first. You're jumping the gun. Oh. So the next question we've got up for tonight is someone was asking about, do you want subs or no subs with your show, specifically weddings? Because some venues are having noise restrictions, or even some communities are having noise restrictions that you cannot have that big booming bass. So what would you recommend? Cubby, go.
I've evolved 50s, so I have those mini subs already, and I think that's more than ample enough for 300 to 450 guests. Prior to having the evolves, I did not carry out a sub, but that's just my own preference. So I say no subs. I think I can get enough, and I use EVs for a lifetime, so I think I can get enough bass out of just my stands. Like I said, I have the Evolve 50 now, so I don't really carry a sub out. No, sir.
In theory, though, you do, because the bottom piece of that,
right,
is your sub. Yeah, and so I would say, obviously, if you're playing in a venue that has those restrictions, or if you find that you're always in those type of venues, I don't think it's one of those things where you have to have it. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where you're just going to like get lambasted by the wedding guests. Oh my gosh, why does it sound so high and tinny in here? No, that might be your EQ. But when you're working with it and have it set up correctly, you can get away with a set of 12 full range cabinets. Does a sub make it sound a little bit better? Yeah, I think, adding that a little bit of extra low end, and also, if you're using full range cabinets and not say the Evolves or the RCFs or anything like that, having your crossover set up so that your full ranges can actually give you that mid high and use your sub for your low, it gives you a better, well-rounded sound. You're able to kind of push lows the way you should. To what I guess to wrap it up, it's kind of like, it depends. If you're always in those venues that are going to have those restrictions, don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. recognize that you can get by and it's not the end of the world like you might read from everybody else on Facebook. You can get by. But if you have that option, yeah, little low end helps.
I think it's kind of funny as Cubby's talking about the Evolve 50. That's a 12-inch sub there. And you can buy some 15-inch, three-way tops. No subwoofer technically, although that 15-inch woofer, if you get the right level of speaker, is going to give you way more bass than that Evolve 50. Because if I spend $4,000 on that top cab, it's going to take some paint off the walls. My Evolve 50 won't do that. Granted, I don't need that kind of power for weddings, and I'm happy with the little mini arrays. So it's that perception of seeing, this big box on the floor and it's going to be making this massive sound. Yeah, no, not if you run it right and you know what you're doing.
But there's also something to the placement.
True.
when your 12s are up in 12s or 15s, whatever, they're up high, you're not able to use the acoustics of the floor, to kind of have that same effect as if you had it, sitting on the floor with that type of stuff. And I think maybe that's why also sometimes the Evolves have that extra punch, is because of where that 12 is. Like if they had flipped that design somehow, right? I don't think we would feel that punch the same way.
True.
And that's a question for Ben. So
yeah.
I'll defer to him.
Yeah, I think it depends. That's a pretty good answer, Dan. Pretty good answer. All right, let's jump to our next question. Okay, our next question actually just came in. I thought it was a pretty apropos question to jump into. Calico Cooper fan put down, what is the wedding season considered to be? I think that's kind of an interesting thought. So if somebody says wedding season to you, Dan, we'll start with you. What does that mean to you, and what would you define that as?
For myself and where I'm at in north central Pennsylvania, I would say May, like very beginning of May, to very end of October. Get a little bleed over in either direction, but when I think wedding season, that's the key months that I tend to think about.
Mm-hmm. How about
it just doesn't seem to go beyond that, really.
Cubby, what are you experiencing?
For me in Iowa, it starts around mid-March and goes all the way through November, and then I've been solid this December. It's a rare year. I got one all the way through December. Weddings, not just corporate events. Those are for other DJs, but I've got weddings all the way through December 31st. January, February is during my off season where I do a lot of corporate events for late holiday parties that move their holiday parties to January. But wedding season for me starts mid-March and goes all the way through November, the end of November.
So basically wedding season, because we're all kind of in the northern half of the United States. We don't have weddings typically when it's potential for massive snowstorms, which cuts out December, January, February for much of us, and many of us go into March with that. Some places we don't have weddings. In Minnesota specifically, we don't have weddings fishing opener, which is in May. We don't have weddings hunting season. And so occasionally the holidays could be considered that, but usually holidays, are in the winter months, which is outside of the wedding season. So that's, I guess, how we would look at that.
I will say my cousin, he's down in Georgia, and it's almost a little bit of a flip. So they very rarely will he have something like July, August. Like it's just those hot months, right? So they, for the most part, they try and avoid. Like he'll get some, occasionally, just like I'll get a January or I'll get a February, right? Like rarely, but it happens. He'll get again, like so his will go like September through like April, pretty consistent, and even some into May, but really avoiding those hot summer months of the every week type of piece, because they know unless they're inside, there's no place they're gonna be cool.
Yeah, and talking to Robin in Florida has talked about those summer months shows and how they don't. I don't know. What's a little sweat?
For some of them that I've had this summer, you would have thought we were down in Florida. Yeah, they're especially a few barn ones, and I will say, I'm jealous of our southern folks because of that ability to do, I would say year round, right? They typically probably don't have the July, August, but if you've got some indoor venues with air conditioning, that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our winter months, we have to worry about snow. So as John said, we're avoiding it. And a lot of our venues, there is some indoor ones, but a lot of our venues are like non-heated barns.
Very much so. It's like, no, I can't do it waiting up in the hayloft because there's hay in there for winter. It's great. It's great. All right, let's go to our next question. So our next question is dealing with some of those scams that a lot of us have seen, where someone will text you asking if you're available. Then whatever your fee is, and let's say that you've quoted them a price of $2,000 for your services. They were talking about a situation where someone was then going to pay them, send a check for $4,000, and then, oh, by the way, can you forward the money to whatever photographer, their cake decorator, whatever it is. And the question basically was, have you ever experienced that scam and that situation, and what happens when you have had that? So I was wondering if either of you guys have known of anyone that has fallen for it, and anything to share with that.
I get them all the time, and depending on how free I am that day, I might mess with them. I know they're scams. I look at the address, and it's usually a residence. It's, so I kind of do some bad before I just start quoting stuff off the cuff. I kind of do research with the address, and it's like a Tuesday or Wednesday type event, not even a Friday or Saturday. So usually like an off night, and I tend to mess with them. I've never known anybody to fall for them though. But yeah, if I've got enough time, I'll mess with them. Like send it back and forth. Be like, I'm $10,000. Just astronomical, just crazy fees. And then when they go, okay, that sounds like a good fee, I know they're really messing with me. So I might mess with them back a little bit longer. But I don't know anybody who fell for it, but I do get those texts or emails often.
Yeah, I can honestly say I've had one that I can think of that's actually come in. I've done exactly like I'd watch, the Facebook groups and see where people are like, oh, this is what happens. I'm like, I got to try it. I've got to mess with them a little bit. And I got him to, again, very same deal. I was like quoted something 3 times my fee, whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is definitely fake. And just, or it was just like, I even did one of those where it was, because maybe there was 2 that came in, because this other one that came in was like, they were telling me the residence, and I'm like, really? I said, my best friend just bought that place. Are you sure that's the address? And of course, then it was like, no. It was this. And they would give me like another one that was like a block over or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately. I've never known of anybody who's personally gotten to be able to go that full distance. Although I've seen some people claim to, like, oh, I'm holding the check and then I handed it over to the cops, whatever. But nothing beyond that.
So I've got 2 pieces to add to this little situation. One of a person who did, and it was a local person in our area here, but it wasn't for DJ type work. It was to buy a puppy. She had a puppy for sale. Someone had contacted her, and $500. Let's say the puppy was $500. They had sent her a check for $2,000. And then they were going to be picking up they were going to pay for the puppy, and they were going to pick it up like in 2 weeks. But they wanted to pay for the puppy to make sure she wasn't going to sell it. Okay. They sent her the $2,000 and says, oh, can you send the other $1,500? We're going to be having a party or something to that effect. And they needed to send it to their party planner. So they did work in something in our and the lady did. She went to the bank. She got a money order. She took the check and deposited the check. Then she got a money order from the bank. They gave her the money order and sent it off. Okay, we're going to put a pin in that story. Now, as you guys have done, I played with these people also, but I actually got the check in the mail because I wanted to take it all the way to the point of, being able to prove it. So the check comes in, and it's I don't know, gosh, I think I probably quoted them $1,000, and it was a $4,000 check, whatever it was. And the intent was to send it on to their videographer, photographer, who didn't matter. So I took it to the bank and showed it to them. And they looked at it and said, well, the check looks legit. I mean, it looks like a good check, and it, had the markings and everything as it should. So they went and took the check number, or the account number, and ran the account, and it came back and it said, yeah, this is the check. So they called the bank, and the bank that it was listed. They're like, hey, we've got a check here for $4,000, and it's it's in this account number. And they're like, yep, this is a legitimate check, and it is there's the money in the account, so it could be cashed. And then the young lady on the other end says, oh, by the way, what is the check number itself? There's where they messed up, is that it was a check that they had already processed a month or 2 or 3 or 4 ago. So they were using the account. They had stolen someone's account number, but the check number itself wasn't accurate. So that's how they were able to know. Talking to the bank people, what would have happened is then I would have sent the money off. Back to our dog story, she sent the money off, and for 3 days she had that $2,000 sitting in her checkbook. Then the other bank caught it, said, no, that's a fraudulent check. They reversed the money, took all the money back out of her account. So now the dog person's account has been, not only that she didn't get the $2,000, but now she has gone backwards $1,500, which she wired to or cashier's checked and sent it off to someone else. So that's how that scam works. People unfortunately have fallen for it, and they are good enough at what they do and getting the information that they can make things really, really difficult on people. So, okay, let's jump to the next one. Next question. So our next question is running electricity a long distance. Specifically, someone was asking about if you need to run electricity like outdoors and you're going to run it 100 feet, what would you recommend for a smaller sound system? And this is something Ben Stowe and I've dug into a little bit. So I'll give Ben's level of an answer. But I wanted to kind of get, Cubby, Dan, when you guys have to do sound, whether it's ceremony or maybe like a cocktail system or something like that, at a distance, how are you handling that these days?
I went digital. I went battery. Total battery for that reason. But I also had it in my contract that we had to be 25 feet within an outlet or viable power. So then I left it on the venue and/or the bride and groom, so that we have to have power within 25 feet. But recently, my ceremony sound for any outdoor things, I went purely battery operated.
And you mentioned, of course, in your contract, have there been situations where you had it in your contract, even though it was there, you still end up like, okay, where's an outlet? Is there an outlet in this zip code?
I addressed it in my planning meeting because I've been in my market for so many years. I know what venues a lot of the ceremony sites are. It'd have to be an out of market venue that I didn't have any knowledge about. But I kind of addressed it and be like, hey, I'm going to, 25 feet within the contract. So either the venue needs to provide me power up until that point where it's close. Or whatever, but yeah, I did my contract within 25 feet. I had to be within a power source.
Dan,
but that's because I've been in my market for so many years.
Yeah,
the problem that I run into with that, and I guess maybe because I'm just thinking of a bunch of our different venues that are where that's all well and good to say that it's there, but they basically would be sorry, like here's where our outlet is, and make it work. And I realize that's, however you have to play the game, I guess, for lack of better terms. But I'm very similar to Cubby. Now, I have a 100-foot extension cord. Like, I carry that in the trailer. One as my, something happened to the battery, or I accidentally forgot to put it in the car. That happened one time. But basically, like, I'm good to go and I've got it. And you want to make sure, and this is something that I learned a long time ago, you want to make sure it's high quality and it's high gauge. No, I'm sorry. The number is low, but it's the thick gauge.
Yeah.
That's
high
weird.
quality.
Like the way the numbers work.
Lower gauge.
Yeah, the smaller the number, the better for long distances. And it's also the heavier the cord, so just be prepared for that. But so that's what I did for a large time. But then very similar. I was running into a problem where it was just like they were, 100 feet was if I was lucky. It's out in the middle of this field somewhere. It's whatever. So I bought a generator and I started carrying that as an option. But then that became more hassle than it really was worth because of the weight and everything else. I mean, it was an add-on fee and, whatever. And I covered it, but it was a pain because it's
Yeah.
heavy. And then you're done and you stick it in the vehicle and it smells like fumes. And it's just like, it was a pain. So I went battery powered. I haven't looked back for ceremony, for cocktails, for the length of time that they are. Having a good battery like the Jackery, or I have an Energizer that they don't even make anymore. But something along those lines is going to be great. If you need it for a long term, like throughout the night, generator. Get one of the Hondas, or mine's a WEN. Got it from Harbor Freight. So basically, it's a knockoff of the Honda. Pure Sign. If you're going to go the generator route, but that's going to be what's going to be better for you. And then you're not restricted to where you're at.
For sure.
You can go where you need to go. Because I will also say, I just had a new venue that I was playing at. It was in September. Beautiful venue. They've been like thinking about a lot of things. However, they did not run power to the ceremony site. So when I showed up, they said, "Here's our power." It was on a deck of the house that was probably 50, 75 feet from the ceremony. And they're like, "Well, you can set up here." I'm like, no, I've got battery. I'm down here. Guess what? I'm now on their preferred list.
Sure.
Because they saw where I was at and where my speakers are at, not I just got to go because that's where I had to go. So.
Nice. Batteries, the direction that we've gone using the Jackery type boxes. I've got that 2000, I think it's a 2000, or is the Jackery 1000 is the one that I have that has an 880 watt battery in there that will handle the system. You guys have probably seen the videos on it that we've done. We did some testing with it. That's easily the easiest way to do it now with the Verse tops, battery tops. So we can do that, and then you don't have to power the tops. For those situations though where you need to, Dan mentioned, of course, the lower number of gauge. You've got your 100-foot cable. You can go, just at the hardware, the big box store, Home Depot, whatever, and they do have 50 and 100-foot cable. Gauge-wise, if you're looking at a 16-gauge wire, that for running a sound system would probably be a limit of about, I'd say 40 feet, or maybe a 50-foot would be as much of a sound system for two speakers and anything for power. That's going to be a max. If you want to go 100-foot, you should be looking really at a 12-gauge extension cord, and it wouldn't be if you were going to be running subs and highs at 100 feet distance, you'd probably be better off running two 12-gauge or running a 10-gauge. And 10-gauge is heavy and it's expensive, incredibly expensive. So in the inverse, if you're going to be running, two tops and two subs, and you're going to be running at 100 feet, you may get to crazy and wanting to run from two different outlets and running four cords, literally to be sure that you're able to run enough power, because a 16-gauge wire that's running at that 100 feet, they say that they can handle about 13 amps of power, but in reality, you're probably looking at closer to 8 amps of power. If it's stretched out nicely, you're going to probably get a little bit more. If you've got it coiled, it's going to heat and it's going to lose some of its efficiency for handling power. So the rule of thumb is to get the biggest gauge, or the smallest number gauge, the biggest wire you can for whatever distance you are. And you watch sometimes, especially like we have a Fleet Farm here, and they do farm extension cables. So I got a 75-foot 12. It was a 12-3 75-foot one. And that I could run, pretty much almost anything. I'm going to get a full 15 amps of power on that if I really wanted to push it that hard. And the bigger gauged wire, the fatter wire, the less heat you're going to be creating also, which is also a very important thing. But as Brian Reds talked about, the battery stuff is here, and it's just best to embrace some of that technology. And he's done many videos talking about that and showing off a lot of the battery-powered stuff out there. So it's good to see you tonight, Brian. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so let's jump to our next question here, guys. Okay, so our next question is about wedding inquiries. When someone emails you and asks, hey, how much do you charge for a wedding? And they just email, and that's basically it. How do you take it from that point? Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. Sure, because then Cubby can correct everything that I say wrong. But basically, anytime on my inquiry form that I get, it tells me the services that they're interested in, right? But if they straight up ask price, or they even ask, or just like give me that information, really don't say a whole lot, I start basically just asking them questions about the services they've already told me. And I think that the whole reason why I do it is I want to get that conversation flowing, right? I put the services out there on the forum because I want them thinking about, oh, he does offer these things. But I want to then turn around and ask them about it, at least somewhat, to get that conversation going and to get that broken down. So that way, when I do end up presenting the price, I've now exchanged that back and forth a few different times. And we've talked about maybe XYZ services that they're interested in. And now it suddenly seems a little bit more reasonable versus I just want a price from this DJ and I don't really know anything about them other than the price they give me.
So Dan, when they email you and say they found your email address somewhere, and they have not looked at anything beyond, they found that email address and said, "Hey, Dan, how much do you charge for a wedding?" Do you try to send them back to your contact form?
No. Most of the times it happens on my contact form first. Every once in a while I do get an email. So if you're talking that direction where it's just a pure email, it's immediately, it's about questions. It's when are we talking about? Like, where is this? Like, let me, and they usually do the first thing if they don't even have a date on there. If it's purely, hey, just what do you charge for this? You know what? Before we get into all that, I need to make sure that I have it available. I mean, what is the date that you're looking at? I've had a couple where they come back and they're like, well, we're thinking this date or this date. All right, well, you know what? I happen to have both of those open, or I've got this one, but I don't have that one. Let's continue talking. Like, where are you looking at? Obviously you haven't booked a venue yet. So is there particular ones you're looking at? And just, even though I don't charge differently for date, I don't charge differently for venue. There's some venues I just won't do. Right. If they're that difficult, I just say, heck with it. I'm not going to charge extra. I'm just not going to do it because I'll be miserable. Right. So there's some of those types of things that work into it. But my price is pretty much straightforward. So, but I ask those questions again, just to get that conversation going. The hardest ones I have responding to are the ones that basically say, we want all this. And this is our, like, in a pure just email where I can't like use the form to my advantage and say, oh, I didn't see the form. Like, but they'll say, we're interested in this, this, and this, and it's on this date at this venue. What do you charge? And then it's like, I got no questions to ask. So it becomes a little bit harder. I still try and find something to start out that doesn't immediately jump to price. But if they're giving me all of those smack in your face like pieces, sometimes I'll just give them the price and then I'll ask them a question to get back to me. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't in those cases.
Sure. Cubby?
Now, Cubby, what should I do better?
God, I always get that thing. It's like, and I don't put all those things on my Dan probably for that reason purposely, because I want to strike up that conversation. Like, oh my God, that's a great question. To be able to afford to give you pricing, I need to know, like, how many hours do you need ceremony sound? Where's your venue? And I start asking all these questions, and then I follow up with like, sometimes a simple 10-minute phone call can answer all those questions. And that way I can share with you my passion, my ideas, see what your ideas are, and see that we're a great fit for each other. And 9 times out of 10, I get a phone call within 24 to 48 hours.
It's interesting because I a lot of times you hear from, for lack of better terms, some of the experts, you don't jump for the phone call right away. It's like, and I've heard the adage, it's like walking up to, yeah, and you walk up, it's like walking up to, a member of the opposite sex that you're interested in at a bar and asking for their phone number without ever saying hi. Like, but obviously it's working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, when I throw it back on them, and then sometimes they'll reply back, well, we're doing ceremony sound, and I'll be, well, I don't want to overprice it and scare you away, and I don't want to underprice it and you not have everything you need. Let's have a time to chat. And like I said, they love it. I mean, like I said, I have no problems in doing that whatsoever, and asking to get them on the phone. And and I just say simple 10-minute phone call. And I do keep it short and sweet. And then we just share, and then it's very easy. Like I said, I don't know. I've been successful that way. I don't know why.
So my methodology is,
go ahead.
Is Brian is in the chat room? Brian Red is there, and he's meant his statement is, I give him a base price and explain it goes up from there. I've taken a variation of that, but instead of doing a base price and going up, it's basically our most common wedding package that is booked every season is this amount. Now, some weddings don't need that, and they've gone to a smaller, more basic package, and some have gone more extravagant. Let's talk a little bit about what to kind of find out, so I can give you an accurate quote for the day. And then that has, in some cases, done very well, and in some cases they've been like, "Hey, I saw you at so and so's wedding, and I want that. What is it going to cost?" I mean, that seems to be what has gone on the most this fall. It's like, yeah, you were at their wedding, and we just want that. And what is it? It's like, but we could talk and see if there's something no, we want that. Okay. So the idea of that, the most common package price is this has done pretty well for me when it's been a call, more of a cold call type of a situation, or a cold email where they're just looking for a price. And of course, yeah, there's all the questions and such, and Mikey's mentioning that in the chat room. So, okay, we've got time enough for probably one more question. So let's see. There we go. I want to make sure I got one loaded up. All right, we'll be back in a sec here. All right, somebody had asked about what you require from the venue when we go to a venue to perform. Over the years, we've needed things to be able to do our shows. Do you require anything of the venue? And if so, or if not, why did you make the decision you did when it came to that?
I'll kick this one off since Dan did the last one.
Yep, please.
I don't require anything from the venue. That's what I sell. I'm self-contained. I don't need anything except near an outlet. And if I can't get near an outlet, I'll make that work as well. Just trying to be that vendor that is easy to get along with. I don't go in there trying to say, oh, no, you need to put me here or here. If I do show up and I do see something kind of like, have you thought about this one? Yeah, that could work. I never go in there demanding things or I have to be here. But no, I've never needed anything from a venue. I do have a stand, so sometimes you do have a table for me. John, that might fit in well with you, if with that table behind you, your workspace or whatever. But I'm just tear the table that table down as well. I don't. Yeah. Some already have it set up or whatever. But yeah, I've never needed anything from a venue except water.
There's the water. Coffee.
Yeah. When I first started out, so like at the time, every venue was always putting out tables for you, and I did very similar to John. I tucked it in behind me because I had a stand that I would set my stuff on, and then I learned that I could hide cables and hide my amps and everything else if I kind of used other stuff, and that was what I was doing. I was using other stuff, and then as that system evolved and I got out of it, and then I really wasn't using CDs, I was like, well, I'll make use of the table. So then I started using the table that they put out. Never used the chair. I was kind of the proponent. I didn't sit before I heard you weren't supposed to sit. It was something, from my radio days, I was always told you had to stand because that's how you project better. And that's how you do it better, as we're all sitting now. When I was doing that then, that's the way I did it. So I didn't need any of that stuff. Then at some point along the way, I was at one venue and I walked in and they didn't have a table or something like that. And it was one time, for whatever reason, I felt like I needed a table. And so I asked them for it, and I was like, oh, we didn't put one out because, a lot of DJs don't use it. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, I only know of one DJ in our market that doesn't use it. But okay, if you're going to say that, that's fine. And that stuck with me to go, I need to start having my own table. So I was bringing everything. And then I was surprising venues because I'd walk in and go, I don't need any of that stuff. And they're like, you don't need that? No, I don't. Take it out. Take it out of there. I get it out of the way. I know where I'm sitting now, or where I'm standing my stuff. Good to go, but I don't need your stuff. And that impressed them. And then I got, then as I went to the different types of stands that I'm using now, it became a nice piece because again, then I didn't need anything from them. Obviously I need power. And that's one of the things I have written in my contract also is, for my reception, I need to be, and I think I forget what the distance I put, but close to power, because for me in reception rig, I don't want to be running a generator if I don't have to. But that was kind of the main thing. And so as Cubby said, I want to make myself as easy as possible to work with. I want my area to be clean. I want it to be a reflection of what I'm having. And what kind of ticks me off is there's one venue I go to that they require that you use it's a marble facade. And Keith is in the chat room. As soon as I said that, he's probably laughing because he knows exactly the venue that I'm talking about. That they require that you be behind this thing. And it's just, yeah. And so it's one of those things where I've gotten to the point where it's like, I don't want to use their stuff because also I don't need an 8-foot table.
Yep.
Right. Even when I was using CDs, like I might use the 6-foot, but like 8-foot, like that was ridiculous. And then even with my wide coffin case, it still was at most 4. Like I don't need all this extra space. And what ends up happening is people put their drinks on it, or people are putting, like they're walking around having appetizers and they set it down like it's, it's one of the waiter trays. And it's like, no. So I really liked getting myself condensed. So I did not have to worry about that as little as possible and make myself likable to the venues.
We started out with our own tables. We made our tables back when it was like we bought speakers, built table for our coffins. And the idea behind that was we didn't want to damage the venue's table. And we thought that was a wise idea because the venues are like, you'll scratch our tables with your DJ gear, that kind of a thing. So we started out with tables and we used those then, but there were times where a venue would have a table in those early days. And it's like, well, gosh, if they're okay with it, we'll just use theirs. And so that was it. But it was probably, no, goodness gracious. I think we started bringing tables in the late 90s, I think is somewhere. And after that, we've always brought tables with us, unless we forgot it for some unusual reason. But in all that time, it's been a 4-foot table or an X stand or whatever it was that we've gone to. And the biggest reason was early on because we didn't want venues to be, messing their tables up because they were really particular. And the latter time, we wanted a more consistent setup. We didn't want to have a 6-foot or an 8-foot or whatever that went time and time again. Guys, we're going to do one more quick question because there was one that was kind of time sensitive, so we're going to be right back with that one. Okay, our final question tonight is somebody's asking about an upcoming bridal show that they're going to be doing, which is just a couple of months away for a lot of us. And I just they were asking about what you would hand out and how you would do it. And I don't want to go into the rest of the question. We're just going to talk about if you were going to hand something out at the bridal show, what would you hand out that would you feel be the most effective to be that handout? So, guys, what are your thoughts?
Definitely something with prices on it.
Okay.
Because when I'm sitting there, I have stuff that I've handed out that has reviews on it and is beautifully done and it's this card and everything else. And the first question they're going is they got the pen and they go, where's your prices? Right. So even if it's a QR code or something that sends them to where the prices are, but something that is there and visibly that directs them to, because the other thing is when they get home, and they're dumping the bag out if they actually do that and don't just forget and 10 months from now, never remember anything they did. But when they dump it out and look at it, they need to know that you gave them something that helps them in their process.
Cubby, what are your thoughts?
Same as Dan. We've got a sheet that has all the pricing on it, and then we have some of the a la carte stuff. We're a packages type of a company. Once again, so like I say, when they dump that Halloween bag out, they can find all of it, and I try to staple a business card to it so the business card's not disattached to. But it still has the piece of paper still has my contact information on it as well. But then the business card right there as well. And then we collect names, so we don't broadcast names. Like we'll get the list from the bridal show, so we don't just broadcast it. We only may be wrong. It probably is wrong, but we only reach out to the brides that we talk to because those are the ones that had interest in us.
Sure.
And we're not wasting money.
Yeah.
Or time.
That would definitely make sense, especially if you've got a lot of folks to contact. I think if I were going to do something, I would do a variation of that most common package and have a little artwork done where you basically have the most common package at the center and the most eye-catching, and you can go up from there. And maybe talking in the visual, having a couple of things of what would it be to go up from there with more customization, more whatever. And maybe that there could be a lower price option, and what's the difference to go down and what takes you up. But the most common is this. And having all the contact information right there, so they basically can look at it and say, oh, well, I'm not paying the most, I'm not paying the least. I'd be right there. Oh, that could be interesting. And here's how to go to their website or their social media channels. I don't know if I
add in something else that I do that I think catches attention, and at least I've gotten favorable response from, has been again, QR codes or something like that leads to my Spotify that has different popular playlists. Father-daughter dances, mother-son dances, these are the current first dances that are hot. Those are everywhere, but when I've shown them, or I've been like, hey, and by the way, if you're needing ideas, even if my date doesn't work for you, here, take this and check it out. They're like, that is so cool. Like they're like, I'm like, a simple Google search would have given you the same thing, but I'm glad you like mine, and just, being able to use that to their advantage. So.
Excellent, gentlemen. I think we are at the end of our time. Now, up next, for those of you who are out there hanging, I'm going to put the link into the chat. Hanging with Howie is going on in the chill room right after we're done here at the top of the hour. They'll be recording a session, so go in there, keep your camera off, keep your mic off there for a little bit, or when they start recording, shut everything down just before that. Then they do a session, and then after that, it's kind of a hallway chat where you turn everything on and you guys talk shop until the wee hours of the morning. Tomorrow night, we'll be streaming one of the Hanging with Howies, and then at 10 o'clock Eastern, they'll be doing a music chat. Brian, Jay, and Howie, and John, the four of them get together and talk music and talk some... They go down some rabbit holes sometimes. I'm just going to say it. There's some rabbit holes that they do.
Great show.
Then I got a Tuesday tips that hits in the morning. Wednesday morning, I think if I'm not sure if Dan, you're gonna have enough time to get one cut this week, but you guys, we've been doing a weekly little thing on one of the artists and songs that have been hitting the top 10, and you can find that playlist out on YouTube for us there. We've had some things going on here, so we haven't done one here. We didn't get one last week, and probably this week, and then the next week we'll be back again. And it'll be Mariah Carey. I'm just going to tell you right now, because we try to focus on one of the songs that just hits the top 10. And I'm guessing she'll be in the top 10 by then. And then we'll repeat it next year about the same time. It'll be great. It'll just be like Mike Walters, if Jesus were a DJ article that we repeated every year for 14 years. It's kind of the thing. So, but yeah, then we'll have another the music show. The YouTube streaming of a music show happens Wednesday night. So, yeah, thank you guys for being with us. I think we are good. Dan, take us home.
All right. Well, on that note, I do want to appreciate everybody who took some time out of your night, or if you're watching this on the replay, thank you very much for joining John, Cubby, and myself. Have yourself a great evening, and we'll see you next time.